Ever wanted to take your favourite magic card and make it real? My name is Max, and today we're going to be using a 3D printer to become the Monarch from Magic the Gathering's Conspiracy set. Not only does being the Monarch allow you to claim dominion over all whales, sturgeons and dolphins around your country, it also lets you draw a card at the beginning your end step. And similar to how Queen Elizabeth ascended to the throne, if you deal combat damage to the existing Monarch, you become the Monarch. You could also get a Planeswalker to do your dirty work for you, but that's just not cricket. And so, without further ado, let's make some magic! Alright, we're starting off by making the main body of the crown here. Now, it's not as simple as just making an oval. What we're going to be doing is putting an oval on top of each other and adding a little bit of a slant in there so that we actually take into account the front detail of the crown. You can use any 3D tool that you want to do your 3D modelling. Most people tend to use something like Blender or Fusion 3D. I'm using SketchUp here because I've had a lot of experience with SketchUp. I'm in the process of learning Blender, so hopefully future models will be a little bit more in-depth. When you start introducing curved faces into your 3D models, it does start making things a little bit tricky to manipulate. That's why making the front spike here is taking a little bit longer than making the rest of the crown so far. One of the things to think about when you're 3D modelling is whether your model is actually printable. 3D printers can handle overhangs of about 45 degrees, so we've got to make sure that these spike indents don't exceed that angle, otherwise the printer's going to have some difficult times printing. Once we've made the first side spike here, we can take that technique and mirror it around the model for the other 5 spikes. And that is version 1 complete. Let's get to the 3D printer. The 3D printer we're using here is a Prusa i3 Mark III's with the MMU2S adapter on it. Now, we don't actually need to use the multiple filament adapter on this because we're only printing in a single colour, but in future, for future models, we might be wanting to use up to 5 filaments, and that will let us do that. The tower on the right hand side of the print that is also going up at the same speed as the rest of the crown is for time-lapsing photos. Unfortunately, the filament that we're using here is a little bit stringy, as you might be able to see, so having that tower there really prevents you from having any sort of imperfections that get transferred to the model. For a first attempt, this has gone pretty well, but the spikes are slightly less well defined than I want, so what I'm going to do is redesign it so that the spikes are printed separately from the main crown body. This front flower motif is definitely one of the most complicated things I've ever 3D modelled. My hope is that by learning Blender, this will actually be a little bit easier in future videos. And with this modelling done, we're back to the 3D printer where I finally got some smooth time lapses working. Because the crown's printed on a slant, we have to remove the supports that get generated as part of the printing process. The 3D printed parts here actually end up being quite smooth, so what we have to do is sand them to make sure that the super glue has a chance to bind them together. We're just using standard super glue here. It's actually really effective on the filament that we're using here, which is 1.75mm PLA. It binds two pieces of that together absolutely fantastically. We're going to repeat the same process for each of the side spikes here. Already I can tell that these spikes are definitely better than the previous model that got printed. Wait a second, is this the best we can do? I think it's time to crack out the airbrush. We're using 2 coats of filler primer here, which fill in any layer lines that you might have from your 3D printing process. What we're looking for with the airbrush here is to build up a couple of coats of really nice looking metallic gold paint. And now, after tens of hours of design and printing, we can finally reveal the true crown of the Monarch. Hello everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please go and leave a comment in the comment section below saying what you'd like me to build next on the channel. In the description of the video there's also going to be a link for a giveaway for one of these wonderful 3D printed crowns. So if you want to be with the chance of winning one of those, go and check it out. Until next time, I've been Max. Now go and make some magic.